All right, everyone, buckle up. We're diving deep into a developing story out of Jamaica today.
That's right, a story about a pretty significant potential fraud case.
And the organization involved, well, it's one you've probably heard of.
The Hartstead Trust.
Exactly. Now, we're basing our deep dive today on some excerpts from a recent news article.
The title, Hartstead Trust Fraud. MOCA charges two suspects in $17 million investigation.
Catchy, right. But let's be real. The number that really jumps out is that $17 million figure.
Wow, yeah, that's not chump change. Makes you wonder how something like that could even happen.
And that's what we're here to unpack, right? To understand how this all went down.
Absolutely. We'll dig into who's involved, what we know so far, and the larger implications of a case like this.
So to start, I guess we need to understand who's doing the investigating. And it's not your average police department.
No, we're talking about the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency.
MOCA, for sure.
Right, MOCA. And they're taking this case very seriously.
Seems like it. I mean, we're talking about simultaneous raids.
Early morning, too.
Yeah, talk about a surprise wake-up call.
In Montego Bay and Deep Portmore, so a pretty big operation.
Definitely sends a message. They mean business.
It shows you the level of coordination and resources MOCA is willing to put into this.
Right, and at the center of it all, two former employees of the NSTA Trust.
Semos Ellis and Kevin Atkins.
Now, let's get into the specifics here. The article lists several charges. Semos Ellis is facing charges of larceny as a servant.
Possession of criminal property and conspiracy, too.
Wow, that's quite a list. And Kevin Atkins.
She's been charged with receiving stolen property.
Plus possession of criminal property, just like Ellis.
And the big one, conspiracy to defraud.
Okay, so a lot of legal terms being thrown around. Can you break down what these charges actually mean in simpler terms?
Sure. Basically, it looks like they're accusing Ellis of stealing directly from the trust, taking advantage of his position.
Larceny as a servant, right? Makes sense.
Exactly. And both of them possessing criminal property, well, that suggests they had something in their possession that was obtained illegally.
So like the money itself or something bought with it.
Exactly. And then the conspiracy charges. That suggests they were working together, potentially even with others, to pull this off.
So it wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing.
Seems unlikely. This points to a planned, coordinated effort to defraud the trust. That's serious stuff.
Absolutely. And I think this quote from the article really highlights the gravity of the situation. Major Basil Jarrett, MOCA's Director of Communications, he said that they're dedicated to, and I quote, protecting institutional integrity. What does that phrase actually mean in a case like this?
It's a great question. It really goes beyond just the financial loss here. We're talking about public trust.
Right, because the Hartstead Trust, they manage workforce development programs, right?
Exactly. Programs funded by the public meant to benefit the Jamaican people. So when something like this happens, it shakes people's faith in these institutions.
Makes you wonder, if this could happen here, where else could it happen?
And that's the real danger. If people lose trust in these organizations, they're less likely to support them.
Less likely to donate, less likely to participate.
Exactly. And then the programs themselves suffer.
So it's not just about the money, it's about the ripple effects. It's about the potential damage to the community as a whole.
Absolutely.
Now, the article also mentioned that during the searches of the suspects' residences, investigators uncovered a significant amount of evidence. What kind of evidence do you think would be most crucial in building a case like this?
Oh, well, in a financial crime case like this, the first thing you'd look for are financial records.
Bank statements.
Bank statements, yeah. Invoices, receipts, transaction logs, anything that could create a paper trail or a digital trail, I guess, showing where the money went.
Right. And then digital evidence, too, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Emails, text messages, computer files, anything that shows communication between the suspects.
Because that could help establish intent, right?
Yeah, exactly. Did they discuss the scheme? Did they try to cover their tracks? That kind of evidence can be incredibly powerful in court.
So it's like piecing together a puzzle, using all these different bits of evidence to try and create a complete picture of what happened.
Precisely. And sometimes the missing piece can come from the most unexpected places.
Like from the public.
Exactly. That's why Major Jarrett's call for citizens to report any suspicious activity is so important.
He even provided a dedicated tip line, right?
He did. 888 MOCA tip.
So if you see something, say something.
Because you never know. That seemingly small detail you noticed could be the key to cracking the case wide open.
Now, zooming out a bit here, this case really highlights the challenges of preventing and prosecuting financial crimes, especially within public institutions. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it really underscores the need for strong internal controls. Having multiple layers of checks and balances can make a big difference.
To make sure no one person has too much power.
Exactly. And mandatory financial transparency is crucial too. Making those records public, making it easier for people to see where the money is going.
And what about whistleblower protection?
That's huge. People need to feel safe coming forward if they see something wrong. If they fear retaliation, they're less likely to speak up.
Which means potential crimes could go unchecked.
Exactly.
And if these kinds of cases do go unpunished, what are the potential consequences?
Well, like we discussed earlier, it erodes public trust. People start to think if they got away with it, maybe others are getting away with it too.
And that cynicism can be really damaging.
It can lead to decreased investment in these public programs.
People might be less willing to donate, thinking their money is being misused.
Exactly. And ultimately, it can weaken democratic institutions as a whole. People lose faith in the system.
So it's not just about the money.
No, not at all. The stakes are much higher.
Okay, so let's recap here. We have two former NSTA Trust employees facing some pretty serious charges related to an alleged $17 million fraud.
Their court date is set for December 4th at the St. James Parish Court.
And the investigation is ongoing. MOCA is leaving no stone unturned.
And they're encouraging the public to get involved, to report anything suspicious. That tip line, again, is 888 MOCA tip.
So I guess the big question lingering is, what does this case tell us about the importance of transparency and accountability, especially when it comes to public institutions?
It's a stark reminder that these institutions are entrusted with a lot of responsibility and they need to be held to the highest standards.
Because ultimately, it's the public that suffers when things go wrong.
Absolutely. This case is still developing, so it will be interesting to see what else comes to light.
And we'll be here to keep you updated. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep asking those tough questions.
Because holding power accountable is everyone's responsibility.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, happy diving.